Welcome into the Blurred Wire. It is your host, King Whale, and today we are breaking down the film that is destroying box office records and box office and fan theories and all kinds of things. We are breaking down Spider-Man: Brand New Day. Now, I had to go watch it twice in order to fully get my thoughts on it, and so I guess without further ado, we'll just dive right in. Huge spoiler warning. I don't know if there's a way for me to talk about it without spoiling it, so it's gonna get spoiled. It's gonna happen. So, I would love if you continued listening, but if you haven't seen it, please just go see it. And then save this podcast and then come back to it and watch it again. Hopefully I'll have a few of my buddies on in order to record again, but I just had some time and I was like, I just gotta get my thoughts out because now I think I'm ready for them. I think I'm finally ready to express how I feel about the movie. And first of all, it was fantastic. A lot of people have it as their favorite Spider-Man. Like for some, it surpassed No Way Home. I don't think it hit there for me. I think it falls under the elite category. Like if I'm doing my top rankings, it's definitely top 10 Marvel project of all time. Maybe top. I definitely like it better than Far From Home. Maybe top. I don't know if it's 7 or 8. I don't know. I'd have to do my rankings again, but it's high up there, right? Right. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, and like a couple of things that worked super well. I thought the Scorpion fight and a lot of the action sequences were dope. I thought Hulk looked incredible. And obviously, Peter's banter with Punisher going throughout the whole movie, kind of what gave the movie its heart. And Frank Castle, I mean, John Bernthal just killed as Frank Castle. I mean, to me, the best performances in this movie were definitely Tom Holland, Zendaya, and John Bernthal. And I thought John Bernthal, I think he had a better performance in Spider-Man: Brand New Day than he did even in The Odyssey. Now, The Odyssey didn't really require him to have that deep or emotional of a performance. But for a movie that's so serious and so intent, and I love The Odyssey is one of those movies where it's people make memes out of it. Like there's this meme going on where someone's like, "Someone get these beggars out of here," and they all laugh. And it's it's not meant to be funny in the movie. It's meant to be like a scene where oh, something's about to go down. But because of that moment now, you know what I mean? Like people could just take humor from it. And that's so cool because Spider-Man Brand New Day, there's there's probably some meme related moments that are going to come out soon, but it's meant to be funny. There are jokes everywhere, but they also don't dominate the movie. So I guess I just thought that was a funny contrast. So, um, yeah, back to what I was saying was good. The acting performances, but I guess the three leads you could really say, because it feels like Punisher led this movie as much as anyone not Tom Holland or Zendaya. Um, I mean, Sadie Sink did a pretty good job too. Her performance didn't impress me as much as the other two. Um, but I really do think it was a phenomenal movie. I think the rooftop scene was hauntingly perfect because I figured out that it wasn't her. In this day and age, it's so hard to give surprises in movies and to do things that people aren't going to expect. And so to be able to have a surprise essentially where we get to see um that scene we weren't really seeing coming, right? And so I remember sitting there being like, that's not MJ. She didn't figure it out from the kiss. I'm like, at first it made sense when she was like a coincidence, like we used to know each other. But as soon as she kissed him, I was like, oh no, oh no, she's doing it. And Zendaya just killed it. The switch up, that was some of the best act. I mean, it's definitely my favorite acting performance from Zendaya that I've ever seen. And this probably, I will say, this had some of the best acting performances out of any of the Spider-Man movies. I still think No Way Home is my favorite, but again, the camaraderie between Punisher, the way Zendaya and all those characters who were being mind controlled had to go back and forth between different roles was incredible. But even when she embodied Punisher, he kind of was still himself. It was like a joke moment, like, oh, this guy's got issues. But the way that she took over Zendaya and went from this uh from Zendaya's character slowly into Jean Grey taking over and slowly back out. It was great. It was great. So Destin Daniel Cretton did a great job with the emotional beats of the movie. and Peter having to wrestle with all that was it was phenomenal in my opinion. Some other things I liked. I mean, like I said, the action set pieces were great. Even getting the Hulk in there, like that fight itself was cool. Like Hulk was probably the only part of the movie that you didn't end up like really needing. But I also think in a way it kind of sets up for because basically Gene kind of basically undid all the work that Banner did when he had Hulk and himself in a lab for 18 months. And so I guess, if they want to see Savage Hulk again or regular Hulk again in Doomsday, this kind of set that up, because she undid all that effort when she was controlling him by getting into his mind and then seeing Hulk push them both out was pretty cool. I think it made a whole lot of sense when they did it that way. So I think that's secretly why they wanted Hulk in this movie because they knew that Smart Hulk is just not powerful enough to be in Doomsday, so they just wanted a way to break him out, and so this was a good way to do it. And it made sense for the character that they wanted to end up using. Um, and it's like they made it a big movie, but still a small movie at the same time. And I think having Punisher in it for most of it actually kind of kept it feeling smaller, right? So I thought, and the fight against the Hand obviously was so dope. Like I could have watched the whole movie of just Spider-Man fighting the Hand because it's just such a cool action sequence. Um, and like you could argue, like, should they really have been able? I mean, I guess he did kind of lose to Hulk, and Hulk was literally about to like defeat him. So you could argue that like Hulk kind of took himself out by realizing it was Peter, and then he just kind of left. And it was interesting how Peter said like I'm your friend, and so it makes people wonder like is the a lot of people are wondering like is the spell as strong as it seemed like it was, because at the end you had Ned start to remember when they did the handshake and they're like, is he just remembering that, or is he just saying Peter again? Because he just introduced himself as Peter, so like it's hard to know. And the same thing with Bruce as Hulk. I don't think the theory that Hulk remembers Peter, but Bruce doesn't really holds up, because if you really think about it, Hulk doesn't know Peter at all. Like if you go all the way back to Infinity War, the first time Bruce is introduced to Spider-Man, Hulk is hiding. So there's not really a way for Hulk to like have first of all for him to even know who Peter is, and secondly to have this intimate relationship with him because by the time they become Smart Hulk, Peter's been blipped for 5 years, so or two or yeah 5 years. So it kind of it just doesn't end up. It doesn't end up making any sense. Like, why would like Hulk remembering Peter despite the spell? Hulk doesn't even know Peter actually. So, um, all of that I thought was fantastic. I didn't really know how I felt about having a mutant be introduced so kind of blatantly like this, and like this is just Jean Grey. I don't really know how I felt about that when we all realized that was going to be the villain in the trailers. I much would have preferred a classic Spidey villain like Mysterio. Not Mysterio. Sorry. Like Scorpion #1. I mean, he was in it, but he obviously wasn't the main villain. But Scorpion or Mr. Negative or somebody along those lines, because Spider-Man has such a deep rogues gallery too that it's kind of like every time you don't use one of the characters from his rogue gallery, you're kind of like missing out on the opportunity because it's so vast. And like I think Marvel also kind of did this so they can really make sure that they step away from Sony because like Sony has essentially ruined Venom. They've essentially ruined Craven the Hunter. They ruined Rhino by having him in Craven the Hunter. So it's kind of like I can understand too. Marvel's like, yeah, let's not redo any of your villains. Let's just like we did them for the not your Spider-Man less Spider-Verse villains. Like the original Spider-Man villains were great. Green Goblin, Electro, all those classics are all fine. And there's probably not that many more in Spider-Man's Rogue Gallery that we haven't seen. Besides, you could argue we haven't seen Kingpin, but then they kind of did it with Into the Spider-Verse. So Tombstone is more of a smaller villain. So are the ones like Boomerang and who's the other one? Tarantula, who I was kind of hoping we would get like a few more action sequences, but instead of just like a montage of them taking it out, because they kind of advertise like we kind of heard that like all of them were going to be in the movie, and it's like they weren't really in the movie. There was just a picture of them kind of in the movie. Like that doesn't really count. And like the Tombstone casting was like just kind of made sense. But didn't really make sense. But Tombstone's not really good enough as a character to kind of carry his own film. So yeah, there's a lot of ups and downs with all of it. It's just one of those things. It's like it kind of feels like, man, Spider-Man already has so many rogues, and it would have been nice to get another one of those on the big screen. But it's like, which one? And they ended up going with Jean Grey, and I think that's partially because that mind control element was going to play really well to the events of what just happened in No Way Home, because Doctor Strange was erasing everyone's minds. So like, in order to have that plot line, you kind of had to do it this way with someone who could control minds, because otherwise there's not really a way to do it. So I see where they ended up going in this direction. So I feel like those are some of the things that I really liked about the movie. I kind of like that it wasn't like, it was funny, and there are lots of parts that had me laughing, but it wasn't nearly as like, I felt like it was a completely different tone than the original Spider-Man, the first three trilogies. Because in those ones, it kind of felt like the comedy was first and everything else was second. And that worked, but like when you got an emotional beat, it was like, oh, okay, like, oh, let's kind of settle down from all that action and everything. And that makes sense. As Peter got older, though, it got more serious, and you can kind of see the progression. And if we look at this one, I mean, it was more surprising when the comedic beats came out, because it had been such an emotionally wrenching movie throughout the whole thing. Like the entire thing was an emotional beat. So I think the movie was fantastic. And now we can talk a little bit about not some of the things I didn't necessarily like. Well, I guess let's go into like what this means for the future, and talk about like where the MCU might go from here and how that affects the broader MCU. Because obviously they want it to be a self-contained Spider-Man storyline, but it's going to have implications in the further. Like I said, I think the number one implication is that Smart Hulk no longer exists. So when Banner reverted, now if he turns back into Hulk, he's going to Hulk out again. And so I think that's just an important beat for Doomsday. Either they just wanted Hulk in his Hulk form, or they just wanted Hulk to not be Professor Hulk anymore. Because you can't really deny that he's less strong, because he's just less ruthless as Smart Hulk. Um, Now Peter got beat up a lot in this movie, and like, people argue that like, you couldn't like, it kind of seemed like he could just get up from anything. And I'm like, they could have worked a little bit harder at making it seem like those moments where he was getting beat down, that he was like actually beat down, like when he was getting like swung around by the Hulk. Like Spider-Man is very, very durable, but that should have messed him up pretty bad. Like, I don't think he's supposed to be as durable as Loki. And when Hulk did that to Loki, although it was kind of cool how he was just like crawling on his back in that one scene, like that kind of made a lot of sense. Um, yeah, so many questions, but I mean, those are like kind of nitpicky things. I think the biggest question, if I had to say there was any flaw with this movie, is Jean Grey's character, and is she redeemable? I don't feel like she is. At least not until they do some serious, serious work on her character. Obviously, what happened to her was horrible. But number one, especially when we see all of these characters who are still good despite horrible things happening to them, not only like do they not become sociopaths, but they stay good. Like, you need a villain that has a motivating factor. Understood. But like Spider-Man, Thor, they've lost far more than Jean Grey has, and they didn't start lopping off people's heads, right? And Andrew Garfield said like, sometimes when his Spider-Man came in, he was like, I didn't always hold back, or I kind of stopped pulling my punches. That's not the same thing as just killing people. And that's where I'm kind of like, if Jean Grey is going to go this route, because it's different when you have Dark Phoenix controlling her. It's different when this is her making her own decisions. And even in all the movies where she had Dark Phoenix, she always had to do something to kind of redeem herself that cost her something. Like, she had to give her life in Last Stand and in that horrible Dark Phoenix movie that we don't really talk about. Either way, in both movies, she gave her life in order to end the conflict and fix things. So in this one, obviously you want to use Jean Grey going forward, but like, she killed at least half a dozen people. And I feel like we're not really talking about that, because like, and I mean, like, there's lots of different, like, obviously the kill count for each hero in the MCU is like variable, like each one has probably killed between hundreds to millions of people, depending on how you look at it. I mean, how many people has Thor killed over the years defending the Nine Realms? But it's also like, well, yeah, there's a difference between like war and innocent people. And I'm like, Gene did make a guy walk in front of a taxi, an elderly man, just so he could get hit. And it wasn't even like the man didn't do anything to her. There was no, I mean, like you already have a morally gray area of just hopping into people's minds without their consent, right? And what she did to Peter on the rooftop was like that was the perfect, horrifying, terrible thing to make Peter hate her and then make him forgiving her and be like, hey, you have me more like believable and redeemable at the end because he's like, you have me. And that was kind of his choice to forgive her because that was something that she did to him, even though she did it to MJ too. But MJ was like, well, I don't really remember it anyway. So the thing that doesn't really work though is that now you have like any of those families of those people that she killed, she drove a tank through New York. I mean, again, we don't, that's kind of side carnage damage. Like, you don't even necessarily have to say someone died from that. You don't really know, although it's probably pretty plausible. She blew up a bomb at damage control. Did everybody get a chance to get out? Not really sure. But the main thing is, we did watch her legitimately kill somebody when that old man got hit by a taxi. And that should at least be enough for us to question, is she redeemable? And my thing is like it's not even necessarily this like we have to question that over and over again, but it feels like one of those things where they added that beat in the movie for the shock factor and to make the audience like really realize Jean Grey was like this person was unafraid to do whatever it took to get what they wanted. But they kind of forgot that like, hey, later on, we're gonna redeem this. We're gonna try to redeem this character and make her Spider-Man's friend, and she killed somebody in cold blood. Like that feels like something you just kind of take out of the movie, or like you realize, oh, that's not really gonna work. If I want this person to be redeemed, I can't have her just killing people. Just like she's already in such a gray area from entering their minds. Gray area. I did that on purpose. I promise. She's already in such a gray area from just entering people's minds, right? And that's already a level of like, yeah, it takes a little bit of consenting. And I don't know if basically the bottom line is because she killed somebody, it's not really up to Peter to be able to let her go. Like, and I know, and even if we compare her to Frank Castle, again, Frank Castle kills criminals. So you can argue that Peter shouldn't work with Frank Castle and he should turn him into the cops, and that's what makes him an anti hero and all those things. And that's totally fine and understandable. But he also, everyone he kills is always a criminal, and it's always someone looking to harm another person. It's just not the way our justice system works. That's the difference with him. But she killed an innocent man. And so that kind of raises the question, is Peter like Peter's forgiveness can't just cover that. You know what I mean? Like him saying you have me, and it was the emotional part of the movie, and again, it could be overthinking, but actions have consequences. And if you're just saying like, well, you have me and everything's okay now as long as you don't kill this guy, and like when he said like you're not a murderer, it's like she is. She kind of is. And that doesn't mean that Punisher was right to shoot her, but honestly, she kind of needs to go to jail. Like, where's the justice for that man's family? And I mean, that would be if that's something they want to explore in the future, that Peter just let this person go. I mean, I guess he got shot too, so you can't really argue that he just let her go, right? But like, didn't try to like. That's something you could argue as morally questionable on Spider-Man's part. Like, why is he just letting superpowered people go? Because she's been through a lot of trauma. Does that mean she gets to kill people and get away with it? Because essentially, she killed people and got away with it. So that could be like a morally questionable thing to like explore further in the future. But it feels like something they're just kind of not gonna address. Which again, it kind of brings me back to the Guardians of the Galaxy movie and all those movies where it's only a big deal when you make it a big deal. So like again, doing a whole show where like the Guardians like where Rocket is like, I'm not gonna kill you, High Evolutionary, because I'm a Guardian of the Galaxy and we don't do that. Even though like 3 scenes ago, we watched you murder all these people, all of his minions, and you're like, I'm not gonna kill him though, because that would be too far. and it makes the whole moment just fall apart and be like, well, clearly you don't believe that, you know. And it's one of those things that it's just an easy fix. Just either don't have him say that, or don't have him kill anybody, or you just have him end up killing them. I mean, you've got so many options, and it's kind of surprising too. I mean, I guess James Gunn didn't direct Supergirl, but then in Supergirl, it's kind of the same thing where she has this whole thing where it's like, yeah, killing someone's gonna really mess you up, and then she goes and kills him, and her argument is like, I'm really messed up. I'm already messed up. But you look at her past, and she's not that messed up. Like, it's one of those things where it's like it's only so like off-putting, and only like we only critique it so much because the movie draws attention to it. It draws attention to the moral ambiguity of killing criminals or killing versus not killing. You know, like when you put attention on it, it's going to make us think about it. So that's why, like, the thing is, everything Jean Grey did up until that point was, you could argue, redeemable. The main, like, the worst thing that she did was what she did to MJ, and you could argue that that's redeemable. Like, that's something Peter has the ability to forgive because that's something that happened to him. Even though technically MJ would need to be the one to forgive her, but MJ was like, I don't remember it anyway. But I mean, for that poor woman who drove a tank through the city, you know, um, and it's one of those things. It's like they explain her powers well, where it's like, hey, once you get 32 feet away, you'll just kind of bounce back. It's just one of those questions that's going to be like every time we see Jean Grey in a future project, if they don't address it, it's going to be like, how does she deserve to be here? Like, how does she deserve to be mentioned as among the heroes? And like, there are, like, you could argue that Pietro and Wanda killed people when Wanda, you know, sicked Hulk onto the whole city, and maybe they should have been held more accountable. Um, and that's a great question because like people died when Hulk attacked. There was no question about it. And then Wanda ends up being there to kind of end up being a good guy and saves the day. So yeah, I mean, you could argue that like this is just like that. I think it feels a little bit different because it felt like they need all the help they can get to stop Ultron. It's like when millions of people, when the whole entire Earth is about to be wiped out, it's like, okay, yeah, even if some people died, yeah, if you're willing to help us, like, yeah, please do. Maybe they should have went to jail after that. I mean, that's a morally ambiguous question to kind of examine, right? And that's kind of why I didn't really like them making Wanda a villain again because she started off as a villain. So like we didn't really need to do that whole thing again. But anyway, back to Jean Grey. I guess the question will be, is she redeemable? And it's it's also a little bit different too because I feel like you look at Wanda and Pietro and it's almost like you feel like they were like in a cult is the wrong word, but like, you know, Ultron was influencing their actions. This was just all Jean Grey by herself too. And so to have her again kill somebody in cold blood, because again, like Wanda making Hulk do the thing, that was more indirect, but we never saw Wanda like go up to someone and like snap their neck, you know. And when we did, she was evil in Multiverse of Madness. But to see Jean walk that guy out and kill him in cold blood, like there's no other way around it, that feels like something that not only like Peter, like if she is redeemed, Peter can't be the one to redeem it. And I don't know what she would do to her family, to that man's family, to like make it better, but it just it's kind of like, did you go a little too far there? Because that's something that's kind of way over her character, especially when you do it to like if this was a one-off villain, or if like if the idea was like they redeemed this person and then we're never gonna see them again because they're gone for some, you know, just one of those one-off villains, like he just did it to end the storyline. Okay, but especially if it's gonna be someone that you're gonna fundamentally build your X-Men mutant saga around, like Jean Grey, a pivotal character, then yeah, I think that's kind of a glaring mishap. Um, but it's the only one that I have. So it was still a phenomenal movie. But the question of, is Jean Grey redeemable in any way? That's gonna be popular in the internet debate spaces, and I look forward to hearing people's opinions on it. So let me know your thoughts down below about it for sure, and then let me know your thoughts overall about Brand New Day, about Spider-Man Brand New Day. What do you think about the movie? What do you think about the performances? Are you excited for the future? What do you think is gonna happen? And thank you again for joining me on the Blurred Wire.